So thank you again, Crystal. Now we have Sean McCann. Oh, thank you. Associate professor at, assistant, sorry. I'm getting everybody's job title wrong. Yeah, yeah, I'm promoting everybody today. So alum of our program, and he works at Oakland University, and he's going to talk about being a faculty member.
Yes. So for this show and tell, I actually chose to focus on the tell part, pretty much exclusively because I don't have any slides. So, so I'm Sean McCann. I graduated from Wayne State Library Science Program. It was the Library and Information Science program back when I was in school in 2003, which means I've been a librarian for 16 years, which is weird because I still feel like I'm like this new librarian, but I guess that would be empirically false at this point. My career's taken me in different directions. Well, not totally different directions. I've been an academic librarian my entire career, but I've worked at some different places. My first job was at Wayne State, actually, as a web librarian, so I worked on managing the website. I transitioned later into a digital projects librarian, so I was working on mass digitization projects and making that content available to the public and whatnot. I did a stint at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, and as the gaming librarian, so my job was to support video games and video game research on campus, which was really cool and fun. And the weird thing was, I went to library school because I wanted to be a reference librarian, but I've never been one. I came back to Wayne State as a digital projects librarian again, and then now I'm at Oakland University, where I'm the business and web services librarian. But the interesting twist on that, which is what I'm going to talk about, is that I'm a librarian with faculty status, which isn't totally rare, but it is kind of unusual, and it's the first time I've had faculty status anywhere. And so I'm going to try to talk about some of the things that I find, different and interesting about that status and what it entails, because it was something that I wasn't even familiar with when I was a library science student, going to get a career, sort of like the implications of being a faculty member. Let's see. A bit about my current job. So it's a very typical librarian job in many ways. I'll echo Crystal. I'll say I have to wear a lot of different hats. So some of the things I have to work on, as the business librarian, I'm the liaison to the business school, which means I work mostly with business school students and faculty. I do a lot of teaching, so sort of information literacy sessions for various classes, showing them library resources that they should be using on specific projects, talking about why they should use them, things like that. I do a lot of what we call research consultations, which is sort of like an in-depth reference session. So I do half-hour appointments with students. They come in, we go over whatever they're, maybe it's a undergraduate student working on a class assignment, maybe it's a graduate student working on a research project, whatever, and we just talk through things, resources and whatnot. It's all sorts. It's more than just showing library resources. A lot of times it's showing how to download a data set and things that tools they can use to manipulate that and get the information they're looking for. Whatever, librarian stuff, and of course there's a collection development sort of dimension to all that too, making resource recommendations, buying books and ebooks and all that stuff. One of the other hats I wear is I'm the web services librarian, which means I manage the website and some of our other web presences. So I'm responsible for sort of updating, changing, modifying web pages on the site. Probably going to do a website redesign here soon, so I'll be heading that up, and I have to head up a team of people that not really do the development, but they kind of advise the development of the site. And then the last thing, I manage the discovery tool, Primo. We call it Library One Search, so that's just another hat I have to wear. And all that's just typical library jobs that you're going to find in an academic library. Where the faculty status part comes in and kind of changes things, so because I have faculty status, my actual job title, even though I call myself the business and web services librarian, on the books at OU, my job title is assistant professor, and that's what I am. What does that mean? Well, the first and most important aspect of that status is that I have an 8-month contract, so I'm actually off during the summer for 4 months, which is amazing and awesome. It means I only work 2/3 of the year. I get another third to just be lazy, hang out on the beach. No, because I don't like to go to the beach. No, that's not true at all. You get that summer off because you have all these other duties, and you need time to work on those things, and I'll talk about them as I go along. But another aspect of that weird sort of 8-month schedule is it complicates work, And so things that were surprising to me is like, I'm very used to coming in and like doing like project-based work. You know, we always have some project going and whatever. Well, because I'm only there 2/3 of the year, if we get to the end of the winter semester and the project isn't done, it's just kind of tabled until I come back in the fall. Like we don't touch it, which was just weird and strange. And I feel like, well, maybe I should come in the summer and work on it. And it's just kind of like, no, work on other things during the summer, and we'll just get back to this. So it's just I guess where I was always pressured to like make sure we were like completing projects in like the most in the quickest manner we could. I don't feel that pressure here. It's just kind of there's disruptions. A good example of a way that it also makes work awkward is one of the things we did recently is open up a makerspace, and I spearheaded that. I put the team together that investigated, you know, could we do it? Where would we put it in the library? What technology would we include? Who's going to staff it? All these things. It was accepted. We renovated a room, put in all the technology and whatnot, and then like my relationship to it just kind of ended because I mean it was like my baby, and then like I couldn't work on it anymore because only being there for 2/3 of the year, they needed other people to manage it because it's gonna be open the whole year round, and I also I don't supervise any staff and things like that, so it's like created it and just sent it out into the world to see what happened. So a weird aspect to the work. You know, I'm used to having more ownership over like projects and things. Another weird aspect is like making my own schedule. I have no contractual obligation to work like 40 hours or 37 and a half hours a week. There's literally nothing in my contract that says I have to, like when I have to be at the library and for how long. But there's still an expectation that I will be at the library and I will be doing my job. You know, you are expected to act as a professional. I should be fulfilling all my obligations and whatnot, but kind of like how I manage that time is a little bit up to me. And my colleagues, right? Because like they depend on me being there to answer business questions and things like so they can refer students to the business library and whatnot. So you have to keep your colleagues in mind, and you really need to keep your colleagues in mind because they're a big part of how you're evaluated in terms of like whether or not you're doing your job or not. But again, no strict guidelines on when I have to be there, but sort of this collegial atmosphere where there's an expectation that I will be doing my work and whatnot. So if you have really bad time management skills, it might not be the type of career for you. But that's not totally true, because I don't know that I have the best time management skills. It just means I end up doing a lot of work at home and things. Just the status itself, being a faculty member, has been different. Because I have worked at other institutions and whatnot, I felt like being an academic librarian always was kind of seen as a supporting role to the faculty on campus. You know, you're there to support them. You're in a lot of ways working for them or working and whatnot. But when you have the faculty status, you're actually on par with them, and I feel that way at Oakland. You know, you're treated with I don't want to say more respect, but there is something different. Maybe I can't put my finger on exactly what that feeling is, but it does feel different to me. You end up working on a lot of the same committees and things together, and they value your input. They actively look for librarian input, which was different. I always felt like in a lot of other jobs, the librarian was kind of like this afterthought, like, oh, we did this thing, and then you're in the library and you find out that happened, and you're like, like how are we going to support that? But we're more like actively involved, and that kind of feeds into another aspect of being a faculty member, is that there's this shared governance sort of aspect to it on the campus itself, and that the faculty is very influential in what the campus does. But even within the library itself, you know, we get to help manage the library in a lot of ways as the faculty body. So, for instance, when we want to hire a new librarian, a new faculty librarian, we put together the search committee, we vet all the candidates, we bring them to campus, we conduct the interviews and whatnot, and then in the end, we make our recommendations to the dean, and then the dean has the final say, but they're not really involved in that process at all. It's the faculty that kind of put that all together, which has been different. I'm used to having a search committee that's consisted of, you know, administrators and librarians, and librarians have input, but not to the degree that you do as a faculty librarian. We get to teach credit-bearing courses in the library. We're a full academic unit, so we currently have one 4-credit, 4 credit, like the number 4, not just 4 credit. It is for credit, but it's 4 credits. writing intensive sort of information literacy gen ed course that we teach every single semester. It's an online course, which is also another interesting dimension to it, but we kind of rotate through who teaches it, and you're working directly with undergrads through the whole semester long, which was something totally new to me. I do a lot of teaching, but it's always been in the form of these like one-off sessions in different classes. My mom's Sicilian, so I talk with my hands a lot. I don't look Sicilian at all. What else? Some of the interesting requirements of the job, though, too. When you become an academic librarian, you can fully expect to be evaluated on a lot more than just your job. Like that's always going to be a dimension of what you're evaluated on, but there's always also some other dimensions to that. Whether they'll call it like professional achievement, and they'll have some kind of rules as to what you should be doing for professional achievement. That may be just things like attending conferences and stuff, but it may also be like presenting at conferences or hosting workshops or attending workshops, different things. And then there's usually some sort of service component, which usually means like serving on committees for the American Library Association and things like that. As a faculty member, I feel like it's more strict and more like instead of just professional development, it's scholarship. Like I have to be researching, I have to publish. So scholarship, it would include publishing in peer-reviewed journals, publishing in professional literature, doing conference presentations. There's a bunch of different things, and it's going to vary from institution to institution, but that scholarship and publishing component is a big part of it, and having some sort of research agenda, like things, research area that you're going to focus in, which is kind of nice as a librarian because, at least speaking from someone at Oakland University, it's like, we're pretty open to what you want to research as long as you can somehow pull that back and tie it to librarianship. So it does make it a little more flexible. I like to research web accessibility. I love doing web design that, makes things more accessible to people with disabilities, for instance. It's one of my areas. And I do a lot with information literacy in terms of like source recognition. Undergraduate students don't always seem to understand what it is that they're citing. So one of my research studies, we were looking at presenting e-journals and e-books to students and then seeing how they cited them. And without fail, they cite them like their websites. They just author, date, title, copy and paste the URL from the address bar, things like that. But yeah, there's this big, scholarship becomes an important part. So that means, that sort of like publish or perish mentality enters play as a librarian, I guess, and puts some pressure on you. Let's see. Which ties into, again, that evaluation piece of like how you're being evaluated. My peers are the people that evaluate me and recommend me for promotion or contract extensions and things like that, which is why you don't want to not come to work, even though you're not contractually obligated to any particular hours. You want to maintain really collegial relationships with everybody that you work with. You want to be doing your scholarship, and then you also have to do a service component, which I said generally in academic librarianship has always been sort of like working for different professional committees, but with faculty status at OU, it also means doing a lot of service to the campus. So because the library is its own academic unit, there are all these contractually mandated committee appointments that have to be filled. So there's like this, the University Senate has a position for some library faculty that the librarian has to be serving in at all times. We have committees that govern like instruction and things like that have these mandated positions for librarians. And then there's all sorts of other committees that just expect librarian representation. I personally I've served on the assessment committee, which looks at all the programs on campus and sees what they're doing in terms of assessing their learning objectives. So I look and see like, okay, mechanical engineering says they have these 3 learning objectives. They say they're assessing it through these assignments. I look at that and make sure that like they really are assessing what they're supposed to be assessing and whatnot. So you feel more important, right? Like it's a really cool role to have. Like I'm telling mechanical engineering what to do. I have a business degree. And I serve on academic conduct, so I get to hear all the cases of plagiarism and cheating and things. And as a librarian, it's really awesome to be on that committee because we're really good at rooting out like plagiarism and stuff. Or when students say they like, oh, I did a web, or it's like I found something on the web, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, open up your computer, show me how you did the search. Let's see what you found. And inevitably, it's like a place where they can like buy assignment answers and stuff like that. That's a really big problem going forward. Is this like sort of there's an entire industry around cheating in college. So, let's see. So yeah, that's my job in a nutshell, and kind of how the faculty status plays into that. And in many ways, it is just an academic librarian job, but there is sort of these extra things on top of it, or it feels that way. If I had to give some sort of like career advice, if people are interested in like pursuing a job as a faculty librarian or just an academic librarian, some things I would say is definitely figure teaching out, do teaching, write a teaching philosophy for yourself, write a teaching statement, figure out your teaching philosophy. That is important. I feel like instruction is probably half of my job at least, and it feels like it's part of like the most important part of my job. And it's changed. I shouldn't say it's changing. It has changed a lot. I mean, it used to be that librarians just did a lot of standing up in front of the class and showing like this is the database and this is how you use ands and ors and you should use this because it's better than Google. Just, lecturing students. But really, now it's changed. It's more about, it's not so much in the mechanics of searching, it's about evaluating the information that you find, which is really important in today's world of like, fake news and whatever else. But teaching students these skills to be able to evaluate information and really explaining why resources or subscription resources and library resources are important to the work that they'll be doing if they're not buying their essays online. Let's see, what else? And I think it's just important, having served on a lot of search committees in my life and looking at people applying for these jobs in academic libraries, finding some way to differentiate yourself from everyone else. You get an MLIS and you apply for that job, but everybody that's applying for that job has an MLIS. So showing me some skills that you have that that are unique, or the teaching is a good one. Any kind of technology skills go a long way, whatever those may be. Even if it is basic web editing, can be really important, just because it shows me that you can edit your subject guide that you have to take care of. That you're not going to be helpless and not be able to put a link on your subject guide or something. What else? Research data is a big one. We're getting more into supporting research data in the libraries, how to find it, how to process it, how to archive it, and best practices around it, all sorts of things. So that's another big area. And then in a couple of out there points, I would say read the book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, by Shoshana Zuboff. She's a researcher out of Harvard, the Harvard Business School. She talks about this sort of changing nature of capitalism in the United States, moving to this surveillance model, using companies like Google and Facebook and whatnot, and talking about how, we're their raw materials as well as their customers in a way. Anyway, and they get a lot of value out of our data. And I just see, I read this book and I look at it and go, this is such a huge opportunity for libraries in general to give people this private space to explore information and whatnot. But just read it. It's a great read. And then pay attention to things like automation, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, because a lot of job duties of librarians are going to be automated in the future. I think we don't think of white collar jobs as automatable, but they're going to be. It's just going to happen. So keeping up to date on that and staying ahead of it I think is really important. I'm not trying to. I know I feel like I ended it on a downer. Everybody's you're going to be replaced by robots. I don't think that's true. As long as we're proactive about it, right? Which has nothing to do with being a faculty librarian, but it's just an area of interest I have. So, that's my whole spiel. Does anybody have questions for me? Nothing? Yeah, Shoshana Zuboff, Zubov, I believe. It's called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. Yep, we have librarians. We call internally we call them part-time librarians. They do a lot of they work on the reference desk. They work on special projects, and they're classified as special lecturers. But they don't have the same faculty status, and they don't have the same expectations of publish or perish and serving on committees and things. I had a video. I had a visual? Oh. Yeah, sorry. Thanks.